I may have to hop out of the meeting and hop back in. I'm so sorry.
Okay, no, there's no problem at all.
Doing that right now, so it should take 30 seconds at most. So
okay. No problem. Hi, guys. We all know how tech issues go. How's everyone doing today? You guys are all so quiet. Roxy, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you? Just having a bad hair day.
Oh, girl, it's okay. I'm sure you still look fabulous. Thank
you.
Hi, Nick. I'm good. I'm doing great. I can't believe we only have what? After this, Lunch and Learn is what, 2 more? I swear the summer is going by so quickly. How are you all liking the Lunch and Learn so far? Do you guys find it to be helpful?
I'm enjoying it a lot. I take a lot of notes.
Good.
Very informative.
Good. Happy to hear that. Oh, Nandini, you're back.
I'm back. Okay.
Okay, great.
All right. Aisha, I'll let you be my guide. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Great. Okay. Cool. Well, without further ado, I'll get started. Hi guys. Like I just said, I'm Nandini DasGupta. I'm going to be talking about the Balancing Act and kind of use this as a way to talk about setting and managing expectations to make your life easier. So a little bit about me, like Aisha mentioned, I'm a digital strategy consultant at Icreon. I started there at the beginning of this year, but I've worked in marketing for about 10 years and have had the chance to work across tech, CPG, fashion, all kinds of cool stuff. And last year, I also started a nonprofit called South Asians Vote, specifically around the election and just more of a get out the vote initiative. In addition to all of that, I'm also getting my executive MBA at Duke University. And as you can imagine, that makes me very busy because I also, I would like to have a life. I have a husband. I'd love to be able to hang out with him and our dog without feeling guilty or feeling like I'm letting things slide. I love to hang out with my friends. I live in New York, so obviously I want to be able to go out and do stuff. So all of that is why this topic is very near and dear to my heart, because I have fallen into that pitfall of when my life has not been balanced at all, when I was disappointing a lot of my friends and family, or I wasn't doing well at work. So we're going to talk about all of that. I like to keep this pretty informal. I have slides with some hopefully useful notes, but I'm also going to talk about just personal experiences, and feel free to ask questions. I think you can use the hand raise function, so feel free to do that or drop them in the chat. I'll keep an eye out. I can see it in my screen. So with that, I'll just get started. So we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about why it's important. Short version is to make your life easier, but we're going to go into detail there. We're going to talk about steps to do this successfully, because there are ways to do it. There are ways that aren't as you can take different steps, but when you put it all together, it makes it much more impactful. And then we're going to talk about common pitfalls and traps to try to avoid, just to, again, make sure you're set up for success. So why is this important? Like I said, you want to make your life easier. And frankly, I'm sure you guys have heard some of these catchphrases and whatnot. I've told these to myself, that you have to always hustle, and is only how people succeed. Not true. Overworking, work 80 hours a week, and that's how you're going to succeed. Also not true. That there's only so many things, so you're going to have to compete, and you always have to, if the person next to you is working 70 hours a week, you got to put in 80, 90, whatever, or you got to work over them. Not true. This is my favorite. The idea that your work and personal lives are mutually exclusive and that those lines are never going to blur. That one, I don't know who made that up. It was never true, and you should never believe that. The people you work with want to know you personally. The people who are in your personal life, they care about you succeeding, and for that reason, they should all kind of come together, and they're going to coexist. You're going to have blurred lines, and you want to make sure that they just don't trip over each other. And then the last one, and this is one I've definitely been guilty of, that you need to say yes to everything. I'm going to talk about that a little more later, but it's not true. And then, these are just some memes that I know. I mean, the Beyonce one, I love Beyonce, don't get me wrong. But this meme has been a trap that we all fall into because we think that we got to strive to that. Yes, Beyonce has 24 hours in a day, but she has support. She has priorities. She has structure to her life that makes what she's been able to do possible. And remember, she also has a family. She has kids. And at least I'd like to think, based on what I know about her, she is a good mother and she is a good friend to her friends and the people that she loves. So that means she's figured out a way to balance and to work hard, but also be successful in what she wants from her personal life. So we need to shift our way of thinking from that and this notion of having to compete to do it just as good with those 24 hours to we need to stop glamorizing the overworking. We need to sleep. We need a good diet. We need to be good to ourselves because you know what? You can't really run on exhaustion. You can't run on fumes all the time. That's not going to create success for you and the things that you want to do. And we've kind of glorified burnout and it's not a good thing. So that's the first thing. You need to shift your mentality to the idea that you don't need burnout. You need to figure out a way to make sure those things that are important to you can coexist. And that way you can do them successfully or to your liking. So just some general benefits. Probably some of these are you've heard these maybe in the workplace or even in school and whatnot. But some of the benefits include, just giving you some clarity about what is important, what needs to get done, what you're trying to work towards. Establishes a baseline of measurement so you can give yourself benchmarks of are you doing what you're meant to be doing? Are you hitting those expectations? Can you beat them in a reasonable fashion? It helps you communicate, and it also, in general, what I really love is that it does improve some of those other soft skills like time management, communication, project management. These are things that the earlier you learn them, your life's going to be so much easier. These are as important as technical skills are, these are what are really transferable wherever you go. It gives you a way to hold yourself and others accountable and also figure out, what are patterns in your life, and that can be good or bad, right? If you are always late every morning, I'm not a morning person. I'm kind of the person who's always late. What can you do to help remedy that? And what are the steps that you can take? What are the things that are causing that to happen? And how can you get ahead of it? Is that leaving 10 minutes earlier? Is that setting your alarm 10 minutes earlier? Does that mean going to bed 10 minutes earlier, right? You can back into all of that and create a system that really works well for you. And then most importantly, this is a full-on life hack. This is not just about what you do on your job. You've probably heard about expectation setting in your day job, or you will at some point. It's very important, very true. You're going to be doing that, but really, it's really important that you think big picture, and you can take these principles and apply it everywhere in your life. Your relationships and your friendships, right? Are you the friend that always ends up having to flake because you didn't plan your day right? Your health goals, right? Maybe you've been eating a lot of junk food just because you have no time to actually eat a healthy meal, or you want to exercise, or you want to train for a race, but you just can never make that happen. Your family, are you giving them the time that they need? Do you just have free time for yourself? And I know, we've heard a lot about self-care, and that doesn't have to be a full-on spa day or anything. That can just be time for you. If you have a side hustle, or if you have those long-term aspirations or career goals, you can take everything that we're going to talk about today and apply those. So if it's your side hustle and you want to be a social media influencer, that's awesome. Set expectations for yourself of what you can do in the short term, and then how can you grow that and evolve that over time to help you hit your goals. So with that, we're going to talk directly about the steps to making this happen. It's a mix of setting and managing expectations, right? What can you do for yourself? And then what do you do from a communication point outwardly? Take inventory. So the first things first, take inventory. think about where gaps exist, where you're feeling overwhelmed or frustrated. If you're burning out easily, if you're missing deadlines, if you're ghosting on your dates, if you're always working late. Example for me is, I'm very guilty of this. Anytime I have a doctor's appointment, I'm really bad at budgeting like enough travel time or enough time because I'm always waiting at the doctor. And so I'll tell my boss, oh yeah, I'll be back in an hour. And it's never that, right? And at first I never thought of it as a big deal because, okay, like I don't have anything else going on. But at the same time, my boss wants to know, just so he knows that he can count on me to be honest and show good faith on how I'm using my time. So he doesn't care if it's taking me an hour and a half if I communicate that, or if I need 2 hours for this doctor's appointment. If I tell him, he's cool with that, but I need to be communicative. So that's just a little gap. If I'm always running late or if I'm not budgeting enough travel time, it's a small thing like that that makes a big difference. Ghosting on your dates or ghosting on your friends. I'm also guilty of that sometimes, where I'll usually say that, oh, maybe I'll show up, or maybe I'll let me see if I can do this, instead of just saying no, or instead of just knowing what my calendar looks like to know, like, no, I just can't do this week. Maybe next week, maybe 2 weeks from now, we'll figure it out. So those are just some like easy examples. And when you figure that out, when you figure out where are you kind of falling short, you can just start to define of what needs to change. And like I said earlier, you're going to start to take some baby steps backwards. So for example, when I realized like I was always running late coming home from my doctor's appointments, part of that was I wasn't budgeting enough travel time. And if you're in New York, the subways are a mess, and like you can never actually count on them to only take you 15 minutes. So I realized, well, instead of assuming it'll take me 15 minutes, maybe I'll miss a train, or maybe the walk is longer. Let me add another 15 minutes. So that means I should also look at my calendar, make sure I plan that properly. Maybe if it doesn't work for my calendar, maybe I move my appointment to a day where it's gonna work. And then I talk to my boss about that move, right? So taking those steps and defining what needs to change. Some of that's gonna be mindset, right? Like just thinking, okay, I need to make that change. And then the other part will be, okay, actually doing that, like taking those steps and looking at what are those tangible things, like your schedule and your calendar. Or if, I'm working on an assignment for school, if I think it's going to take, and maybe I'm assuming it's taking me an hour, but I realize, wait, these are much harder than I thought. So I need to budget that time accordingly. So with that, that's kind of when you take that inventory and do a little more of an introspection. Make it really clear for yourself what it is you need to do. Because if you can't make it clear to yourself, you're not going to be able to act on it really well. You can't communicate that well to the people around you. And so, my favorite kind of exercise nowadays is to put it on paper. Maybe I don't use the paper all the time, right? It's not like I have a poster with me with all of the things on my list, but at least if I've written them down, I get to think about it and I can digest it, and at least they seem much more clear than just when they were jumbled in my head. Understand the why. So one thing I really like about when we're talking about expectations and whatnot is there is no reason this exercise that you're doing can't match up to your overall goals, right? Like I mentioned, maybe your goal is to run a 10K in 6 months. That's your why. So now you have to budget, okay, this is a new thing in my life. That's an important goal to me. How can I make this happen in a way that isn't so disruptive to everything else in my life and is still productive? So it keeps you motivated. It improves your accountability too, right? It reminds you, okay, this is why I'm doing it. I'm doing it to improve my health, or I'm doing it because I really care about the cause that this race is working towards. So thinking about that's really going to help you just keep you going. And it also helps you think long-term and big picture too, right? Like it'll help you figure out, okay, is this complementary to any of the other goals in my life? Maybe you're planning on running with a friend. You have a buddy and you have a training buddy. So that's your personal life and how that matches up there. So all of those things really come together. Next is write them down. Like I said, this doesn't have to be super formal. You don't have to type it up. Don't think of it as a legal document. You may do this for your job, so you may end up writing this down for your job, which is totally fine, a different story. But if you are doing this, be it for your own development and your own reasons, I still recommend writing them down, match them to your goals, right? Create that story of, this is my target. I'm doing my MBA. I intend to graduate in 2 years with a really good GPA. What do I need to do in my life to make that happen? And so that's creating a study plan. That's having a really good calendar managed. That's creating teams to work in, so I can, if I'm not understanding concepts, I have people to lean on. So that's my plan of action. And what it's going to do is going to mitigate confusion later down the road. It's going to keep you accountable. It's going to also be a resource that you can use later, if you need to adjust, which we're going to talk about later about flexibility. If you need to adjust, you can think about those things, look at the list of things that you promised or you told yourself you're going to do, and it gives you an idea of what is easy to change and what is harder to change, and you just start to, you're going to rewrite it down, and that's totally fine. You're going to have many drafts of this. So this is a really important one. I've been guilty of just kind of keeping some of these things to myself, and these promises or these goals to myself, and thinking, okay, you know what, I got this. I don't need to worry about like other people worrying about this. That's not true. So whether it's, with your friends, with your family, your manager, your teammates at work or in school, sit down with them and talk about this. And I would actually invite you, if you have the opportunity to make this a group exercise, absolutely. I think that's really, really beneficial. And it's a really good way to discuss those expectations, discuss that plan, right? So you really need to kind of go through that exercise before about the why, and writing things down, making it clear what it is you're going to do, what are the changes in your life, what are the things that need to change that you can control, what are possibly things that are out of your control that you're going to need help with, right? So for example, probably one of the more popular examples is at work, you feel like the deadlines, you're never able to make a deadline, your original deadlines, and you're always needing to ask for extra time on a project. Now, this is a great example where you've done the inventory, figured out what it is you think you can do to make yourself more efficient with your time when you're working on these projects, but you still feel like, I may not be able, I don't think I can hit all of this the way that my boss intends. Then you sit down with your manager, you lay out, this is what I've done, this is how I've been thinking about it, this is my plan. At the same time, I think these deadlines are a little too aggressive, and I would love for, if we can add 2 days to these, based on, who the stakeholders are for the project, if we can add an extra day or two and we can work together on that, that will be beneficial, because it's going to ensure that I can do this on time according to the new timeline and do it successfully, because quality is, of course, still really important. So really encourage having that conversation, and make it two-way, make it productive, and ask for feedback, right? You can, if it's the example with your friends and you feel like you're flaking, you can ask them, I feel like I've been letting you down. I hope you don't feel that way, but I want to talk about it. If they say the same thing, then, maybe it's a matter of everybody just being really busy or having divergent interests that can't ever seem to come together. So if you can make that a conversation, you can actually go much deeper into the root of any problems you're possibly having in the first place. And then, if you're going to be doing this with your manager, so if you're going to be doing this in the workplace, definitely try to make this more official. Ask for sign off. You can have regular progress check-ins. This can be a part of your personal development plan. So what I think is really good about this exercise, I've done this before actually, where it was kind of unprovoked, where I went through this exercise and brought it to my manager rather than waiting for them to say that this is a requirement or this is something that I want you to do or I want you to reevaluate your time management. I kind of bring it early on into my relationship with my manager because I want them to know what is important to me, because like I said, when I talk about the whys, they're going to align to my goals and my values. So that helps my manager understand what is important to me. So I once had a boss who, she was a brand new mom. So making it home in order to take care of her baby incredibly important. And she brought that information back to our team right when we started working with her, right after she had her baby. And it made it really clear that, okay, 4 o'clock, we're not going to schedule any more meetings on her calendar. We need something, we're going to talk through it before that. That way she can get home, and if there is anything urgent, we'll send her an email and we're going to talk about it in the morning. But that way we can understand what's important from a work and personal point of view. Like I said, it all like blends together. They're not mutually exclusive. And then this is kind of a little bonus step, because it isn't really a step, but I think it's just still very important. And that's in the power of saying no. So kind of similar to what I said about the lies that we've been told or we've told ourselves, is we have absolutely been conditioned to say yes and to be very agreeable and just kind of do what we're told, right? It's easier. We don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. We've been taught to be obedient, especially to superiors, and we don't want to miss out on an opportunity. All very valid. And that's the thing. Like I've done this in my career. I still do it at times. I fall into this trap, and that can be from both a professional point of view and a personal point of view. We like it. It's fun to be the person that does say yes to things, and that is, very agreeable. So I don't blame anybody for feeling like they've fallen into that. I wouldn't even say that it's necessarily a bad thing, right? There are times when saying yes will be really beneficial, right? Maybe if you consider yourself a very risk-averse person and you want to say yes to more new things or new adventures, by all means. Like, I'm not telling you to stop saying yes, but there are ways that saying no can and will change your life. And it really just aligns to what we've been talking about. There may be times, I'm not going to say will, I'm never going to wish that on anybody, but there may be times when you are working with somebody that has kind of an abusive view of power, right? Or they treat you poorly. There may be times that you've kind of gotten into a trap, and you're doing things that are affecting your mental and physical and emotional health. You're being told to settle for low pay or a substandard role or substandard project that doesn't meet your potential. It's going to take some conditioning. It's going to take some time. You're going to learn how to say no to this. And a lot of that comes from experience, from confidence, from building some other skills. So today is not the last time you're going to hear about this as you go through this professional development journey. But I want to at least tease this out a little bit. And it's one of the hardest things that in my life has been saying no to personal things, right? Like, I'm the person that even if I am exhausted and I've been working a lot of hours, if I get a text from a friend, I feel inclined to say yes because I feel bad. I feel FOMO. I'm very much like that person. And then what happens? I'm burnt out for the rest of the weekend, right? So it's not good. It's a trap that I fall into all the time. I'm working through this, and that's the big reason why I want to talk to you guys about it. Is when I do these academies or lunch and learns, however you want to talk about it, I try to choose topics that I know I've had to work through myself, because I don't want to just read to you things that that I had to research. A lot of this comes from personal experience, and when you talk to mentors, you're going to learn that too. But to that notion, just a quickie way to start, how to start thinking about how you say no. The first is be quick. And I would say this also applies to when you want to apologize. You don't need to drag it out. You can just say, I'm sorry, I can't. I can't make this deadline. I can't get to go out to dinner tonight. I can't, I'm not going to be able to make this, work on this assignment because I'm just really stuck. And you can be honest. You absolutely should be honest. I think that's one of the most important things from a communication point of view is if you are honest about why you are saying no, chances are the person on the other side, they're people. They're going to understand that life happens, that maybe it's a tough project, that maybe there are other things that you need to be worrying about right now. or maybe it's just, you know, you need sleep, and that's okay. So they're going to understand that it isn't the right time, or that you have other commitments, or just it isn't a good fit, right? Like if your friend keeps inviting you to a museum that you have no interest in, and you can say that, and that gets you to the next piece of, you know, maybe, you know, if that relationship is important to you, you can suggest an alternative. Maybe there's another person, or maybe there's another way of doing things, or another activity that could mutually work well. So if there's using the example of a project you're working on at work, you told your boss that, you know what, I'm really struggling to make this deadline. I've been swamped. I am a part of this. I just don't fully understand conceptually. Your alternative is, hey, John on my team, I think he has a really good understanding of this. I don't want to pass the buck completely, but I think we can overall benefit if he has the time. We can loop him in and start to get some help that way, so that we're improving the quality and we can still try to get this done in a relatively timely fashion. And then also maybe ask for a rain check, right? If you had to say no to a project outright, but you want to voice interest to that manager or to that leader and say, actually, this is still really interesting to me. It's just not the right time. Make a plan for the future where you can go back and actually make good on that promise, right? It shows good faith. It shows interest. It shows that you care about the relationship. And all of those things are really that helps you in the long run, right? So you don't fall into that FOMO trap, right? Like there will be a next time. Almost always there will be a next time. And so it's just really embracing that reality that there will be other opportunities. So plan for that, and you're setting yourself up for success, and so you don't lose out on that. So then the last section is just around common pitfalls and traps. And it's just a couple of points here, but I think it's really important to acknowledge. This is probably obvious to a lot of folks, but being unrealistic is a major trap. You know, there's a psychological aspect to unrealistic expectations that I'm not going to get into, but really the idea here is, you're assuming that you have a level of control or ability that you don't always actually have, right? When I say that I'm going to be able to get to and from the doctor's office in an hour, well, I'm not taking into account the subways. I have no control over the subways. I have no control over how busy my doctor is. So I'm setting that unrealistic expectation automatically. So that means I'm not going to achieve it. I'm not going to get back in an hour. And then those ancillary effects are really what what really drag it out further, right? That you're going to let your stakeholders down. I'm letting my boss down because I told him I was going to be back in an hour. I'm not. And if he wants to meet with me, or if he wants to have a quick check-in, he can't do that. He has to wait until I get back now. And he's wasting time waiting instead of doing other things because he had known when I was going to come back. I will say too, and this kind of ties to that kind of psychological aspect of unrealistic expectations, they're often connected with other things that these are traps and pitfalls that we all fall into. But it's a way, this exercise can be a way to help kind of train yourself out of perfectionism, and also low self-esteem if you are not able to achieve that perfection, and negative core beliefs, and also like a fear of failure and a fear of change. Because if you keep setting the bar so high to the point that you're going to keep failing, and then people are disappointed, then you're going through this endless cycle of, oh my God, anything I do, I'm going to fail at. So you want to set yourself up for success. That's the whole name of this game, is set yourself up for success, not failure. Sometimes you don't always know, right? So whether you are being realistic or unrealistic. And when that happens, you absolutely should try to find more information, right? That's why research exists. You can look at different examples. You can ask friends and colleagues for their examples and expertise. So use the example of a project from your boss. Try to get perspective of how long does this project take other folks to do? If your boss had done it, how long would it have taken that person? And then try to evaluate your abilities on top of that, and how long it will take you to to complete the project. And then, I mean, this should hopefully be a little easier, but protect yourself, build in buffer. It's a comment, I mean, I know it's become cliche nowadays, but under promise and over deliver is kind of true, right? I want to amend that a little in that it isn't about under promising. It's about promising what you believe you can do. Give yourself a little bit of buffer along with that buffer, and then you're able to deliver on it. You're able to do it well, because the name of this is, everything is time bound, really, and then everything, quality matters in a lot of these things that you're working on. So you want to be able to meet both with really, really high value. And then lack of flexibility. So this is really important. You're gonna go through this exercise. You're gonna make a plan for yourself. That can be for your internship. That can be for when you start the semester again and you did juggle a million things. Situations change, right? I think the pandemic of all things taught us that incredibly well, that we need to be flexible with how we set and manage expectations. So when that happens, it's really important to re-review the plan that you created. You need to scratch out half of the things that you wrote down. That's totally fine. Incorporate some of that flexibility and communicate that out again, right? So when you had first started a job, you thought when you had your last job, your time commitments looked one way. You start a new job, that's going to change greatly, right? It's time, it's your energy, it's the headspace. Maybe you're going to have to work a little late more often. So thinking about that and being flexible and not punishing yourself over, again, not being able, over needing that flexibility. I think that's really important. All of this is meant to be enacted with really positive intent, right? Don't punish yourself if you can't do something, if you're missing your deadlines. Ideally, you're getting ahead of it. The whole point of this is get ahead of it and do it in a way that will improve you for the long term. And I think with that, that's the bulk of the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, or even we can just, if anyone has examples of, ways that they've done time management or expectation setting, either in a professional or personal setting, I think we were happy to talk through that as well.
Hi, Nandini. I do have a question, and I'm sure everyone would want to know. So how do you silence your fears when you have to set boundaries?
It is very hard. I think that's a great question, because I will admit I'm not the best at that. I would say my husband's really good at that. He's really good at boundary setting and just like, no, my priorities are my priorities. Other people can fall in line. I'm the opposite in terms of personality, because I consider myself a little bit of a people pleaser. So, but what I will say is I've taken steps to try to mitigate that. And a lot of that comes with what I said before about communication and conversation. Recognizing that the other person on the other side of the conversation, they're people too. They have health issues, they have family, they have all of that. If you go into it as a conversation and get to understand each other's values and what is important to each other, it becomes less scary, right? Because I think we think that our problems are so unique to just us, right? That, oh, I'm the only one working X amount of hours, but no, actually my friends have to work late all the time too. They get it, they're tired. If I say it to them, they're gonna understand it. And so I think the biggest thing is if you can go into it with an open-minded conversation rather than just a, hey, I can't make it today, and leave it at that. I think that's a really good way of easing some of your concerns and also just getting to know your stakeholders better, because I think that's really important too.
That was a very good answer, especially going into it knowing that you're also talking to another human being as well, and they have their own issues. So bringing in the humanity aspect of it, that's definitely very helpful. So thank you for that. Are there any more questions? Does anyone have questions for Nandini? You can drop them in the chat. Everyone's being so shy. Or can someone give an example? Oh, Jensine, she raised her hand. Okay.
Hello?
Yes, we hear you.
Oh, hi. Thank you, Nandini, for this amazing presentation. My, I guess, question or concern is, when you try to do your best with time management, but for example, a specific task is taking you longer than it should, what do you find most helpful to make sure that you can finish a task more efficiently and faster so you can move on to the next task within your workday?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what I try to do is identify the bottlenecks really right away, right? Like, say I'm working on a presentation, right? Like when I was working on this presentation, if I was really struggling with figuring out what are the right steps, I would have taken to kind of other measures, right? Maybe it doesn't have to be just me trying to think and like pick my brain constantly. I can do a little bit of research, or I can ask, I like to use my husband as a sounding board and ask him for how he's approached some of these issues too. And I think, if you can find the bottleneck and figure out what is the way to best tackle that bottleneck. So whatever is, causing that difficulty to finish it up, if you need to ask a teammate for extra help, or if you need to ask your manager for a little extra help, getting ahead of that early is always beneficial, right? You never want to wait to the last second. So if you're stuck, if you find that yourself stuck on a certain section pretty early on, get ahead of it. Nobody's going to fault you. I think that's another important thing. You guys are working. I've been an intern before, right? Like the projects aren't always easy. I know it feels like they're always meant to be a little bit of a test. Part of that test is how you can work with others to deliver. So a lot of that, it's what they don't tell you, but they want you to kind of ask for advice. They want you to get feedback or get help from other sources. So don't feel shy to do that. And that will help you make that a little more efficient. And then when you have to do it again, or if you have a future project like that, you already know, okay, this is the type of thing that isn't always easy for me. So how can I get ahead of it? Oh, I'm going to talk to my teammate again. We're going to work this out ahead of time. It's a really great question.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I see one in the chat. Can you give a time when you wanted to say no, but ended up saying yes to the task and you gained valuable experience from? Yeah, absolutely. I actually, I'm working on a project right now that's pretty up that alley, where my COO asked me to work on a project for a financial services firm, and that is in no way my expertise. I was already pretty busy, so I wasn't really thrilled by the idea of working on this project that I'm working on right now. And we talked through it, and I voiced that concern a little bit, just saying like, look, this isn't my forte. I don't really know much about the financial world. And I'm going to be a little swamped. So if you can give me some flexibility, then sure, maybe I can look into this. We talked through that. He gave me the flexibility that I needed. Again, I still wasn't thrilled about having to work on a financial services project, but what I've been doing lately is, working on the research part of this project has been really interesting. Like I said, I didn't have this experience, and now I'm learning about a sector that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten that experience. So I think that's, it's been a really cool thing. And then I think the other two, from even a more casual point of view, is, I had, maybe this was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, when I was kind of planning on saying no to a group dinner, just because, I was pretty busy. One of the things that I had planned ahead of that got canceled. So I technically had a little more flexibility with my time, I ended up saying yes. I ended up going to this dinner, and I made a couple of really cool friends that I'm hanging out with, like even more than my original friend at the group dinner. So, you know, I have plans with them this weekend. So, I think there are ways to find value even from those things that you don't want to say yes to. But like I said, you still need to be pragmatic about when you want to say yes and when you want to say no, because you don't want to say yes in a way that is going to be harmful, but you also don't want to say no to opportunity. So it's a balancing act. Like, that's the whole point of this. But and there are times you're gonna feel like you missed out, but going back to what I said, you know, there are always new opportunities. And so if I had to say no to this financial services project, and if I had held on to my no, sure, I wouldn't have gotten the benefit of learning what I am learning right now. But I would have told my COO that, you know what, now's not the time. This isn't really my forte. But if you have another project for me in this arena, or in, you know, even within financial services, but with a little more flexibility from a time point of view, I'm all for it. Let's talk again next month. So just really having a plan on how you want to communicate your no's is important. Aisha, I think
Yes.
45 stop, right?
I mean, I will say that our tactical workshop for starting at 12:45 actually got canceled, but if you wanted to say anything else, feel free. If not, then we can definitely end it at 12:45.
I have a question.
Okay, Nicole.
Hi, my name's Nicole. So recently, I started 2 summer classes, and I'm at the point where I'm kind of struggling a bit to kind of manage everything with my internship and my fellowship. So how do you recommend communicating that? I don't know, I guess like I might have to take a step back a little bit from some of these tasks, like in my fellowship. Yeah, and just communicating that to my team and like my mentors.
Yeah, that's a great example, great question. I have been in those shoes exactly where when I was an undergrad, I did the same thing. I took summer classes and worked and had extracurriculars, and it was a lot. What I would say is kind of what I was saying before about, you know, remember that the people that you're talking to, they most likely get it. And it really is just about, you know, like we said before, do that inventory. Are there small changes that you think you can make that will help a little bit, right? Maybe it gives you an hour back in your day. That's not a huge amount of time, but it helps, right? You're going to do some chipping away in an early stage. But then you realize, well, look, maybe you have this weekly mentorship meeting, weekly meeting with your mentor that you're not able to get as much value out of it because your mind is in a million other places. Your mentor is going to understand that. Your mentor is going to actually find a lot of value in that honesty because, you know, I've done a lot of mentoring myself, both as a mentee and as a mentor, and everybody's time is so valuable, and you want to get the most value out of the sessions and out of the programs or the classes that you're in. And so being clear that, you know what, maybe once a week or twice a week is not feasible. Can we maybe shift this to a half hour every week, or once an hour every other week? And then on the other weeks, you know, you can focus a little more on your schoolwork. So you're going to be a little crafty with your methodology, but I would really encourage you to go, when you want to go into these conversations, go in with a little bit of a plan yourself. Go in, you've done the inventory, you have an idea of how you think you can make it work. So you go in with that, and then you can also ask for that feedback too and say, hey, I'm really swamped. I think having mentors is a great way to also accomplish this too, because they've been there too. So they will be able to give you feedback. Okay, if you're swamped, if you're going through a lot, maybe you can look at these types of things. And also say, you know, I think we easily underestimate our professors. Now everybody, professors have dozens and dozens of students, but they're also people, believe it or not. And you can have a conversation with them, and it's unlikely you're going to get a lot of like deadlines moved or anything like that. But I think, having an honest and empathetic conversation with them will at least help reassure you on how you can perform, right? Maybe your professor may give you advice on, well, these are some study tips and tricks that other students who have a lot of these other obligations have found really successful. And so there are ways that you can approach even your professors. And again, you don't want to come from a point of complaining or frustration. It's that you've kind of started a plan and you just need help executing on it.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions? This is great.
I do. Hi. Hello, my name is Brianna. My question is like, how do you not like hesitate to say no? Like, say that you're in the moment, and then the moment you want to speak, you feel a bit blank. So it's like, what, like, I guess like small tactics do you use like to tell yourself like, oh no, say what you had to say without, missing the opportunity, or just like, not saying no.
So are you asking like, so how are you make it easy how do you say no quickly, right? That's what you're
Yeah. Like in that moment, like, like before you say it to a person, you're like, oh, I'm gonna do it. But then when you're in the actual moment, you're like, oh my God, like, know.
I hate to say I don't have a great answer to that, because that one is probably the hardest step to how to say no. It is kind of like ripping off a Band-Aid is what I would say. And you just gotta start having to do it, and you can kind of put it in practice with little things, right? With maybe like your best. I think a great way to do this is with some of the people who are most close to you, and your stakeholders. I should have said this earlier, but I'll say this now, and this applies well to your question too, Nicole. Your stakeholders, that can be your professors, your manager, your friends, your mentors. They only want the best for you, right? They're looking out for you. They like, if you've surrounded yourself by good people, they want you to succeed. And so they're going to have your back with that when you are creating that plan, and when you are trying to implement it and make good on it and try to make yourself better. So then in the case of your question, Brianna, is maybe when you are going through this exercise and, trying to find a way to maybe get more balance in your personal life, right? Let's use that as an example. Tell your best friend or tell your significant other or your family member that, look, I'm going to have to start saying no to things. And it's going to be a little bit of a hassle for me. If you catch me dancing around it, or if you see that I'm like really overwhelmed, call me out on it, right? Like, for me, my resource has been my mom and my husband, because they're the ones who notice right away when I'm exhausted. And so they'll tell me, hey, you're doing way too much. You need to say no to this person, or you need to say no to this thing. So you can have basically your support system help you through that too, and call you out on it and like push you to say no. And I think that will be helpful.
Thank you.
These are great questions, by the way, guys.
Yeah, they are awesome questions. Any more questions? Okay.
I got one, but it's completely random. So you talked about self-awareness and things like that.
Yeah.
And I find like I hear those kinds of concepts being brought up in books. Are you an avid reader?
I am an avid reader. At least I try to be. When I have the time. That's another thing, right? Like, sometimes you don't always have the time to do it, but I try to be. Yeah.
So what's a book you're reading right now?
Oh, great question. Well, this kind of is a little more personal, but I would, in the interest of honesty, recently my mother was diagnosed with cancer, and fortunately, she's doing really well. Like, she's going through treatment and things are going well, but I've started to read books specifically about being a really supportive caretaker and a really good, it's called coping with cancer. It takes a bit more of a scientific and psychiatric method to how to be a supportive person as they go through that journey. And so that's literally what I've just started reading because it's very near and dear to my heart. It's one of those books. This is a time when I'm making time to read this because it's so important. And I think cancer is one of those things that's not going away. So I imagine the older I get, or the older my family gets, this may come up again. So I'm trying to learn more about how can I be, be the person that person needs me to be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Got it. So sorry to hear about your mom, Nandini, but I know she'll do well.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. I don't think they have any more questions, but Nandini, this was a phenomenal presentation. I personally learned a lot. I know I do struggle at times with the balancing act. I hope everyone else took extensive, copious notes. This was so helpful. Thank you for sharing your experience and your genius with us. We really do appreciate it. Yeah, so for everyone else, we will actually be ending our Lunch and Learn a bit early today. So you guys have about 36 minutes left back of your time. But yes, thank you so much, Nandini. We definitely appreciate this a lot. This is great. And I can see in the chat, they loved it too.
And I'd say too is, if you ever want to reach out, I forgot to drop my email.
Oh, yes.
But
yes.
Feel free to find me on LinkedIn. My